Picture this. It's a quiet weekday at your church and there's a family meeting going on. Unfortunately, the safety team and the church leadership are unaware of the fact that one of those family members has a dark past, a history of violence. And before anyone can act, before anyone can intervene, tragedy strikes. That's exactly what happened at a church in Sacramento, California. On February 28, 2022, in a church in Sacramento, California, a father murdered his 3 daughters, a chaperone, and then himself during a supervised visit. Afterward, it was discovered that there were a number of red flags. Things like a recent arrest, where he assaulted a police officer and resisted arrest. We had a history where the wife had a restraining order against him. All kinds of red flags, all kinds of things that could have notified, would have notified a safety team of the danger that was coming. So let's get really practical. Let's say you at your church become aware of a potentially violent person. Maybe it's like this. Maybe it's a supervised visit at your church. Maybe it's there's a divorce happening and there's been some violence there. Maybe it's a child custody issue that's going on. Regardless of the situation, you realize that you have a potentially violent person that's coming to your church on a regular basis, or it's going to be at your church maybe for an event. So what can we do in that case? What can we do? Well, the first thing I feel like we need to do is we need to assess the risk. How big of a risk is this actually? And so we need to research this person just a little bit. Now, I imagine for some of you, you're thinking like, how, I don't have access to, government computers. I don't have access to police computers. That's okay. You don't need it. It would be great if you did, but you don't need it. So one of the things that you can do is this. Just do an internet search on them. A lot of people will surprise you just how effective an internet search works to be able to look up a person. You can look under news and see if there's any recent news story about them. You might find out other things about their past. You might discover their social media. But you just read what you can, figure out what you can from just doing a search. In that, you find social media, check them out on social media. You would be surprised how foolish people are in what they post on social media. And it talks a lot about who they are and what they think. When somebody is getting ready to kill themselves and or kill other people, their strong emotions, the way they're feeling, the way they're thinking is just going to seep out of them. And it's going to be in their posts. It's going to be in what they like and dislike online. It's going to be in what they post. Another thing is, some of you might not know this, but did you know that arrest records are public records? You can actually, a lot of these government sites are available online. And so you can go in there and you can look up that individual to see if there's any arrest records. And of course, if we're finding things on Google search, if we're finding things on social, if we're finding things in an arrest record and it's things that indicate past violence, that's a warning to us. That's a signal, if you will, that we need to be more careful, that we need to plan for a potentially violent person. The next thing that we want to do to kind of research them more is kind of maybe the obvious one, is how about talking to family and friends of that individual and just giving them a call and say, hey, what can you tell me about John Smith? Is there anything I should know about him? And kind of give people an opportunity to tell you, hey, John's got a temper. That's kind of a nice, polite way of saying John could be dangerous. And so that kind of information, once again, we're gathering information to do the best we can to assess just how dangerous this person is. So the second lessons learned is simply this. We need to know, as the safety team, who's coming into our church. Now, I get it. Depending on the size of your church, this can be a very difficult task. I think a lot of times our safety teams, we feel like we get to church, we kind of see our friends, we see our fellow safety team members, and we like to huddle in a group and have conversations with them. And maybe that's all fine and good for a short period of time. But then the rest of the time, what we need to be doing is we need to be looking for people that we don't know or we don't know well. And we need to walk up to them and develop a relationship with them. The importance of developing this relationship cannot be overstressed, because it's through these relationships that you develop with people where they know where you're part of the safety team, that they know that you're a person that they can come to in the event of emergency. If something's going on in their life, maybe it's a divorce, maybe it's a child custody issue, maybe it's a loss of a job, or maybe somebody struggling with alcohol and drugs, or a lost job, or whatever these deals are, we can become aware of it, and then we know that, hey, there's potentially a problem here, right? There's a divorce going on. That's how we're going to learn some of this stuff. Maybe they'll be the ones that come to you and say, hey, we have a child custody issue going on. Are you aware of this situation? And these help us then to identify who's coming into our church and what they're going through, and potentially which one of those people might be a potential disruptive person in the future or a potentially violent person in the future. One of the things I'm very proud of for the safety member certification course that we have is we do have a section that covers verbal de-escalation, and part of that is developing relationships with people so we're aware of any potential threats, and then of course then we know how to mitigate those threats, communicate with them, and hopefully we don't have to rely on the other module that's part of the safety member certification, and that's of course the active shooter response. And so this whole course is designed to prepare you for just what we're kind of talking about here with the shooting in Sacramento. So I'm just going to ask you, you definitely want to go down in the comment section, check out that link, go check out our website. It might be something you and your team will find very valuable. The third lessons learned is teaching our team and making sure ourselves understand the pre-attack indicators. The idea is very simple. People that are getting ready to attack will have certain behaviors that we need to be able to spot and start to take action on as quickly as possible. So pre-attack indicators can be a multitude of things, and it's usually a combination of a few things that let us know that something is about to happen and it's not good. So some good things are this. Maybe it's a hard stare. Maybe it's they're gritting their teeth and clenching their jaw. It might be balling up their fists. It could be, them kind of puffing out their chest and sticking out their chest and kind of bowing out a little bit. It could be them coming in and invading another person's space. So here in America, right, usually about 3 feet apart is about right. And so if they're getting in closer, that's a sign that they're getting ready to get violent. It could be fidgeting. It could be weird arm movements. It could be violent. It could be like very aggressive arm movements. It could be pacing back and forth. It could be mumbling or chanting. All these things kind of tell us, hey, something is about ready to happen and it's not going to be good. It could be if they're yelling and screaming at somebody. It's the tone of their voice. It's, anger and shouting and all those kind of things. It could be something that they say, like, I'm going to get violent here, or I'm going to lose it, or any kind of language that suggests that they could be becoming violent at any moment. And so these are some of those pre-attack indicators that you need to, go online, Google a list of them, and review it yourself, get with your safety team, and talk about these again, just to have a refresher. A lot of us have seen these over and over again. It still doesn't hurt if you've been a cop for 30 years. It's good to review this every once in a while, and then making sure the rest of our teams review it as well, and it's fresh in their mind, because seconds count in these kind of violent events, and the sooner we can identify somebody that's going to become violent or very likely going to become violent, that buys us a second or two. And in these events, a second or two is a lot of time that we can use to our advantage. Next week, we're going to discuss the second part of the Sacramento Church Shooting, and we're going to talk about the planning that goes in as you're getting ready for this potentially violent person to show up. Don't miss it.